Thank you for attending the meeting tonight. I would like to read a land acknowledgement before we get started this evening. I would like to recognize that the area we call the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District, where we are gathered today, is the homeland of 30 different First Nations communities. Actions and decisions made by government in the past have left many Indigenous communities untrusting the Canadian healthcare system. It is our collective responsibility to keep this at the forefront of our minds as we make decisions, since the decisions we make have a direct impact on the physical and mental well-being of all community members, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. So with that in mind, I would like to call to order the July 27th, 2023 meeting of the Fraser Valley Hospital District Board. Thank you. Ms. Kinnaman.
Looking for approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Move, Madam Chair.
Director Facio, Director Shahal. Those in favor, contrary, carried. Next item.
Item 4.1 is the draft Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Board meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2023.
Move Director Clute, Director McElhonick. Those in favor, contrary, carried.
Item 5.1 is the 2023 Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Treasury Update. This is an information item, but staff would be happy to entertain any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, next item, please.
Next is reports from board directors.
Any reports? Seeing none.
Moving down to public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We'll just turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness.
Thank you. We do not have anybody in person today, and we do not have anybody joining us on Zoom, so we can move to the next item.
Thank you.
So the next item is a resolution to close the meeting.
So moved.
Director Facio and Director Johnson. Those in favor, contrary, carried.
Okay, and if you just give us a couple minutes to set up the room.
Directors, take your seats. Ms. Kinnaman will call the open meeting back to order. The next item, please.
Thank you. So item 5.1 is solid waste facility authorization application for electoral area B. There is a motion for your consideration, and we do have a delegation this evening by Ralph McRae and Derek Holmes.
All right, so let's get this on the floor. Moved by Director Clute, seconded by Director Smith. And Mr. Holmes, welcome. And I'll just say we've got 10 minutes for your delegation. And then what I'll ask directors is I'll ask you to hold your questions until the end. And then we'll allow for questions outside of that 10 minutes. Does that sound good? Floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for accepting our delegation. I'm Derek Holmes, President of Hope Environmental. With me is Ralph McRae, Dean of the Local Waste Industry and advisor to our project. We have prepared an 8-minute video, after which I will wrap up.
Fantastic.
Today, the FVRD takes control of its future in solid waste management. Your 2016 Solid Waste Management Plan is flexible and adaptable. It foresaw the need for in-region investment to achieve your goals of sustainable waste management and local capacity without combustion-based incineration. We are seeking your approval to proceed to obtain a license for the development of the Hope Resource Recovery Park. Your approval will allow us to continue our plan review with the Provincial Ministry of Environment. Our facility reflects the aspirations and goals of your solid waste management plan and delivers the capacity and capability to manage construction and demolition waste materials responsibly while minimizing adverse impacts. The construction and demolition industry is the largest employer in the FVRD. With a rapidly growing population, there is a desperate need for new construction and a way to responsibly manage the waste and recyclable materials generated. If the construction industry cannot dispose of its waste on a predictable, consistent, and cost-effective basis, development will grind to a halt. Every year, some 900,000 tons of C&D waste and recyclable material are generated within the lower Mainland, 1,000 tons of which originate within the FVRD. In the recent past, most of the C&D waste in the FVRD has gone to local First Nations landfills. This has always posed a challenge for FVRD in predicting flows and targeting diversion. In recent years, all of these landfills have closed, with no plans to reopen, creating both an opportunity and a challenge for the region. With the closure of in-region options, the material now moves through regional transfer stations to distant landfills in Washington State and Oregon. The exorbitant costs of that long-distance transport cause the illegal dumping in parks, public lands, and farms. This challenge will only increase as waste from climate change-driven events such as the tragic Sumas Prairie flood reoccur. Removal of existing homes for densification increases, and the City of Vancouver landfill in Delta reaches capacity and closes by 2028. Recognizing this, in March, Metro Vancouver signed 3 prohibitively expensive contingency waste disposal contracts to move some 250,000 tons of waste to distant, out-of-region landfills in Cache Creek, Washington, and Oregon states. The latter two over a 1,100-kilometer round trip away, contributing vastly to the GHG impacts. Without a local solution, the FVRD faces rising costs, increased GHGs, the potential for lower diversion, and ultimately more illegal dumping. The financial burden falls squarely on the back of the construction industry and inevitably finds its way into the increased cost of housing that has already become unattainable for many. Without a local solution, FVRD is powerless and the construction industry will be crippled if the U.S. border is hardened against waste export, long logistics lines are imperiled, or interior highways are closed for an extended period, similar to what happened with the flooding in 2021. In-region solutions are critical to harden your infrastructure and protect against unforeseen adverse effects. Right now, the region is exposed. The solution been anticipated by your 2016 Solid Waste Management Plan. We at Hope Environmental are here to offer the FVRD a homemade solution that will address this problem for the next 40 years or more. Hope Environmental has designed a post-recycling C&D landfill with your solid waste management plan as our guide. This locally based and privately financed facility will feature increased diversion and material recovery, shorter travel distances to reduce GHG associated with travel, while providing well-paid, sustainable jobs in the region. This will once and for all give FVRD control of its own destiny and cripple the looming threat of metro garbage incineration. What's more, we will pay waste levies to you exceeding $50 million over the life of the project, allowing you to invest in additional environmental solutions and other investment priorities for the community. To deliver this, we ask for no money, for no laws to be changed, and for no lands to be given to us. All we ask is for you to recognize that this project fits within the current SWMP's goals and objectives. This will allow us to responsibly move forward with licensing the facility and invest our own funds on our own site so that we can build this state-of-the-art facility. What is the Hope Resource Recovery Park? It's a new post-recycling construction and demolition residuals landfill to be sited on provincial crown land near BC Highway 3, about 15 kilometers southeast of Hope in electoral area B, on lands currently being operated as a gravel pit rock quarry that is already supplying aggregate to the region. It is being developed by an affiliate of B&B Contracting, a well-respected family-owned business headquartered in Surrey with extensive existing investments and operations in the FVRD. B&B is one of the largest civil contractors in the province with a 75-year history of excellence. The facility will be a symbiotic project that progressively reclaims the aggregate extraction or excavation already occurring on the site, designed to return the land to a post-closure use that will support a working forest. Once arriving at our facility, all material will be examined and sorted, with identifiable recyclable materials recovered and sent for secondary processing elsewhere. Only the residual will then be deposited in the adjacent landfill. This facility will not compete with the flows to Mission or Bailey landfills that will continue to receive material directly from local sources. We will guarantee that our pricing will not compete with Bailey landfill and give such other assurances as you may decide are necessary to assure waste flows will not be diverted. Environmental protections will be to the highest standards available today to safeguard the water, land, wildlife, and air. Our plan is to operate in an environmentally responsible manner that preserves the physical beauty of the local region and benefits local residents. The facility will receive less than 250,000 tons of waste per year. It will not be open to the public. A highlight of our plan is the minimization of environmental impacts due to transport to the nearby facility via a backhaul of aggregates. Trucks already originate at the facility to move aggregate to our gravel operations in Abbotsford. Our plan will have these same trucks travel a short distance to a MRF and transfer station in Huntington and Abbotsford, where material will be loaded for transport to the facility. That circular process will then be repeated. We anticipate only 30 round trips per day, all on commercial vehicle routes. That equals 1 to 2 trucks per hour at the facility. Access to the site is directly off Highway 3. We anticipate the facility transfer, transport, aggregate extraction, recycling, and processing operations will create and support approximately 50 highly paid jobs within the FVRD. This is a truly full circle project. Aggregates extracted are used to construct new homes and buildings. Materials discarded from that new construction is recovered and disposed of in the most environmentally sensitive manner, and what would otherwise be a large hole in the ground is returned to a working forest. Metro Vancouver's solid waste management plan expired in 2020. They've been operating without a plan since then and will not have a new one in place until 2025. Despite that, in 2020, Metro introduced amendments to their tipping fee bylaw to stop all waste entering the region and ban it from the transfer stations and landfills. Metro did not seek approval from the Ministry of Environment. The Ministry of Environment did not require them to amend their solid waste management plan. Metro acted in their best interests. You actually have a solid waste plan in place that allows you to do things your way. We urge you to take control of your future within your region. Please help us deliver this critical component of your solid waste management plan by granting us authorization to proceed at no public cost and to great public benefit. Thank you for listening.
Okay, that's good. We've been planning this for 3 years now and approached your staff 1 year ago today. We have thoroughly analyzed the market, identified the need, and looked at every possible option. The solution is unique, and this region desperately needs it. Our 56-page application submitted this spring laid out a clear path forward without any need for a study or arduous plan amendment process. I have copies with me should anyone like to read it. We today ask you to authorize our facility and, with our support, advise Ministry of Environment that your plan does not need amending. The ministry will not deal with our technical application until you do, and we're happy to include FVRD staff in that process. Once we receive your blessing, we embark upon a long planning and consultation process with the province and are likely 3 years away from opening in 2026. If you refuse or further delay, we are indefinitely stalled. With the Delta landfill closing in 2028, Metro Vancouver's only in-region option is significant new incineration. I close by posing this question. Why would your plan section 8.6 require any new disposal facility to seek authorization under your plan if you didn't already have the sole authority to authorize it without amending and re-involving Ministry of Environment? Back in 2016, the ministry gave you all the power you need to do what we now ask. If you like what we've presented, please help us make it a reality. Thank you for your consideration and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Do we have questions from directors? Nope. Don't see anyone online. Questions from board directors in the room? I have a question, Mr. Holmes. So what was the total tonnage again that you anticipate the project to receive? It'd be under 250. Okay. And a question, would you anticipate that originating here in region or out of region? Okay, thank you. Check in with any directors. Nope, I don't see any. Okay. We have moved and seconded the motion consideration. I'm going to call the question. Oh, Director Smith, you have a question?
Yeah, have we done any Indigenous, consultations on this, kind of what's going on here? That's usually on forefront of everything we do. Now we have to, look at our Indigenous partners and anything we do in the community. I'm just kind of curious.
Once it goes to the province, then that Indigenous consultation will begin.
Thank you, Director Smith. Again, don't see any. Okay, you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any. A motion carries. Thank you. And appreciate your time, Mr. Holmes and Mr. McRae. Thank you for being here. Ms. Kinnaman?
Item 5.2 is the point in time homeless count and preliminary figures. There's an information report, but we do have a presentation this evening by Ron Van Wyck from Enron Consulting.
Mr. Van Wyck, the same thing applies. I'll say we've got 10 minutes for our presentation. And if there are questions, I'll ask directors to hold them until after the presentation is complete. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. If I go over my time, just tell me so. I will try to stay within that. So thank you for the opportunity
Van Ness will let me know
to speak about this. And I want to start by stating that it is possible for us to discuss this evening because people who experience homelessness share with us very personal data, deep personal data. And I think we need to keep in mind that we are talking about fellow human beings here that find themselves in a situation that we need to be very respectful of and show a lot of understanding and not to use this information to further shame or stigmatize situations that is very unfortunate. So I'm not implying anything by saying that. I just want to state that as an opening comment. The other reason why this is possible for us to discuss this is that staff from service providers in the various communities give in kind of their time to gather the data, to interview people who experience homelessness and enable us therefore to provide these findings to you. And then also the FVRD staff, Alison Stewart and Teresa Alexander, plus staff from the participating municipalities who've also co-planned and co-coordinated this project needs to be recognized in this process. In terms of the where do I point for this to move on? There we go. So in terms of the project overview, why do we do this? This is the 7th one we have done, the point in time count and survey. First one was done in 2004. It is based on voluntary participation, and these point in time counts and surveys cannot claim to present a full total picture of all the people who experience homelessness in our communities, because it is based on voluntary participation and there are people who do not want to participate in this. And there's also situations where, for instance, women who are fleeing or avoiding violence and abuse do not want to be included in this process, and that is being honored and respected. The participating communities have been Abbotsford, Mission, and Chilliwack, and the Eastern Fraser Valley. Eastern Fraser Valley includes Agassiz Harrison, Hope, up to Boston Bar, we put them together because of the smaller numbers, and for the sake of confidentiality, we put that data together. We do this. The rationale for doing this is that it provides us with trends in terms of what is happening regarding people who experience homelessness in our communities. It helps us to better understand this phenomenon, what contributes to that, what are the pathways out of it. It also provides us with information to do ongoing advocacy work regarding service needs and the provisioning of housing to people who experience homelessness. And therefore, it helps us to speak into funding priorities, and the data can be used for that, as well as has been the case in the past in some of the participating communities. I'm not going to dwell on the definition of homelessness, but to move on to just say in terms of the methodology, it happens over this process happens over a 24-hour period. The first evening, typically it's focusing on people who find themselves in emergency shelters or in transition houses or in youth shelters. And then the following day, the remaining part of the 24-hour period, we would focus on people who live outside in encampments or in places where people typically would congregate who are experiencing homelessness in our communities. So having used that approach, we have determined that in this year, that the number of people who are experiencing homelessness is 1,081, up from 895 in 2020 and up from 407 in 2004. You can see the upward trend that has started to happen from 2014 onwards. The following slide just gives you a quick overview of the number of people per community, and you can see the trend is upwards in Abbotsford, in Chilliwack. Mission has stayed about the same from 2020 to 2023, and the Eastern Fraser Valley, there's also an upward trend since 2017. This slide provides you with the proportion distribution per community. So you can see Abbotsford and Chilliwack carries the biggest proportion of people who are homeless in the FVRD, followed then by Mission and the Eastern Fraser Valley communities. This slide just tells you where people have been interviewed the night of or during the count period. So about half of the people who experience homelessness were in emergency shelters or in extreme weather shelters or transition houses. But a significant number of people were also unsheltered outside, 250, plus the 88 that stayed in their vehicles, and 93 that stayed on someone else's couch. So those are people who do not have a place of their own that they can safely go to and find accommodation on that night or other nights at friends or at clients' places, etc. Then the age distribution. So it's interesting to note the trend that has started in 2014, the upward trend regarding people 60 and older amongst the homeless population, and a decrease in the numbers of those that are 19 and younger. So those are the two trends that stand out there if we look back to 2014. The following slide just gives you the age distribution per community. So I'm not going to dwell on that now for the sake of time, because that is just more detail. Moving on to then gender distribution. So the majority of people, again, over the years, we have seen that, and it's similar to other jurisdictions and across Canada, the majority of people who experience homelessness identify as male. What is interesting to note that there is this higher proportion of those identify as females in Chilliwack compared to other communities that participated. And this is something we started to see, I believe, in 2014 going forward. So again, we can have further analysis about that in the fuller report that will come out in September. Then what is also of import and something of concern is the significant, almost 75%, almost 3/4 of people who experience homelessness experience it for a long period of time, a year plus. So in terms of the definition of chronic homelessness, those are chronic homeless people. So we need to ask ourselves, why is that? What is playing into that? And as we do further analysis and reporting out about this, we will speak more to that. But it is something that is persisting. It is not new this year. It has been the case in 2020, 2017, and starting in 2014 as well. So why is that? Despite the fact that we are providing housing, that housing is being, additional housing is being provided or has been provided in the various communities. The length of time is just per community. So the same data, just broken down in communities. So you can see that in all the communities, there's a significant proportion of people who are experiencing homelessness for a year or longer. And that is of concern. Health issues is another issue, an area of concern. So you can see, if we look at the comparison between 2020 and 2023, that on all these data points, there has been an increase regarding addiction, mental illness, or mental health issues, physical disability, medical condition, acquired brain injury, and learning disability. So learning disability is 0 in 2020 because that question wasn't asked then, but the others have been asked even before as well. So again, that remains a concern as to the significant number of people that self-report about these health issues. And that again is just a breakdown per community of the same data. Then the significance of the presence of people that declare indigenous ancestry is 35% in 2023. And if you compare that to the proportion of people with First Nation ancestry or First Nations in our general population, then you see that significant overrepresentation of people of indigenous ancestry within the homeless, among people who experience homelessness. Again, it is not unique to our area. It is the trend across Canada. And we know the history of this land regarding First Nations and to what extent the social structure issues have played into it is something for further discussion and debate. Then coming to and that's just the breakdown of the same issue of indigenous ancestry per community, the portion of that per community. Chilliwack 40%, Mission 39%, Abbotsford 31%, and the Eastern so 31%. Then moving along, previous ministry care. So again, we have started to ask, I believe in 2014, whether people who are homeless have been in ministry care. So that's either on a youth agreement, in foster care, independent living agreement, those types of agreements with the ministry. And you can see about a quarter of people who experience homelessness have reported that they have been in ministry care.
Mr. Van Wyck, you're at time, but I extended our previous presenter's time by a couple minutes on my watch, so I'll do the same for you on yours as well.
I'm about to conclude, so thank you for that generous addition of time. So I think the preliminary conclusions are that the causes of homelessness, as has been the case and been established through studies over the years, coalesce around unaffordable housing, the inadequate supply of supportive and other suitable forms of housing given the conditions and the issues that people face that are experiencing homelessness that we've reported on in terms of addiction, mental health, etc. And then family relational breakdown also plays an important role in people ending up experiencing homelessness. Then also, just wrapping it up, the trend is upward. The older demographic is increasing. The high proportion of chronic homeless people continue to persist. There's the substantial prevalence of addiction, mental health issues, and other health issues that are there. And investment in housing and healthcare needs to continue, in my opinion, and we'll speak more about that in the report. And that although emergency shelters are an important component in response to homelessness, it should not be seen as housing, and more focus should be on supportive housing instead of emergency shelters. So, Chair, Then you also see in your slides, or what have you been distributed to you, the list of community partners who participated and made this possible. We thank them for their generous contribution. And with that, I would be quiet. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Van Wyk, and I certainly appreciate all your work on this. And I just want to make sure we have lots of time for questions. So Director Shahal, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for your presentation. I always look forward to it. I find that there's some elements that I really didn't hear that loudly before, and it was that family relational breakdown, or I can't remember how you actually termed it, but I wonder if that can be unpacked more. And also, when we're looking at building shelters and building rooms for those who are struggling on the streets, whether helping family capacity to some degree, allowing families for help in dealing with their members, it is something that we should start looking at as well. Thank you.
I would agree with your point about the importance of family and how family can maybe part of the solution here, and working on that, focusing on that, and see what we can do about it at the community level. I would support, and we will speak more to that in the report.
Director Gibson, go ahead.
Thank you. It's been asserted by some people that talk to me, I don't necessarily agree with it, that some of the homeless are from other areas and they're attracted to our area because of our welcoming climate. And so they're coming here from the prairies or other areas that are less hospitable at wintertime. And I'm wondering, given your research, or through you, Chair, is that a legitimate lament, or is it really something that's imagined?
We will, again, I don't have all that data here this evening. These are just preliminary findings, but we will reflect upon that in the fuller report. Based on previous surveys, people do move. This is a free country. People can move and reside where they want to. Whether people are coming to certain areas because of services available, that remains debatable. So I think the best I can do this evening is to say that we have asked that question. We do look into that, and we will make the comparison with previous surveys to see whether there's a significant change in where people come from. But in the past, the majority of people that we have enumerated to be homeless in the FVRD have been from the FVRD community. And if someone is saying that I am originally from Edmonton, but is living in Hope for the last 15 years, is that person from Edmonton or is that person from Hope? But that's the play as well, to use an example.
Okay, I've got Director Horn and then Director Adamo.
Thank you. A quick question and then a follow-up, Ron. Will your final report include recommendations for our communities in terms of what the data is saying we might want to consider doing? And will it include recommendations for how we might shape the next point in time count? That's question one. I'll pause and wait for an answer.
Yes, we will have recommendations, and we will be working with municipal staff to shape those recommendations. That will be included in the report as well.
Thank you. And my second question is just really would love to hear, because you note some differences from community to community, and I don't think anybody can be thrilled with these numbers, but I wonder if we might understand why they look different, and in some cases why there might be a little greens of hope here. And I anticipate, for example, that communities that have really done collaborative approaches to outreach might have had some successes. So I'm just interested in hearing a little bit out of that. That's fantastic to hear that we'll have recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean the full report will unpack in more detail, some of these nuances. We are still busy doing some data analysis or analysis and starting to put the report together. So we will elaborate on that and we can then deal with it at that point. And as I said, we'll be working with the FVRD staff and the municipal staff to shape those based on the data.
Okay, and I've got a speaker list going here. So Director Adamo, then Director Lowen, and then Director Driesen, and then Director McAhonig. So Director Adamo, go ahead.
Through the chair to our guests, thank you very much for your presentation. I noticed something that seemed a little bit alarming in Eastern Fraser Valley, where the age between 40 and 60 plus represented 67%, and that is the highest in any category throughout the entire regional district. Yeah. So number one question, do you have an explanation for that significant number? And then the other would be the breakdown in terms of, I noticed that you have addiction listed as one item, mental health as another, but you don't have a breakdown of those suffering from dual diagnosis. So those with mental health and addiction as one as a result of the other, or one result of the other, you know what I'm getting at there. So if there's a breakdown in that category.
There will be a breakdown in that category. You can only pack so much in 10 minutes. So,
but respect that. Thank you.
there will be, that will be there for sure, because that's an important point. I mean, jokes aside, lightness aside, that's an important point. So we will analyze that. On the previous point about the significant proportion of the older demographic in the Eastern Fraser Valley, that is something that we still need to get a handle on as to why that is happening, because the survey didn't ask for those why questions. The survey is just reporting on what people have told us. So now we need to start understanding, okay, so why is that the case? And I haven't reached that point yet to unpack that. Yeah.
Director Lowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ron, for that preliminary report. Given that we now have approximately 20 years under our belts of these count and time reports, and acknowledging also that you're never satisfied with what we're doing. We're never doing enough as a society to address this. And I'm not saying I disagree with that. I'm just saying I know you well enough to know that how you feel about that. But given the length of time, how would you characterize our communities and provincial government's response to homelessness over this 20 years? Is a trend? Is it an upward? Is it status quo? Is it going down? Like, how would you characterize the response over those 20 years today relative to 20 years ago or thereabouts?
I think there's wider and broader and deeper recognition of the issue, and then investment, I think, has followed. If you look at the number of units that came on stream in Abbotsford, in Chapelwack, also in Mission, and hopefully soon in Hope too. I mean, that's significant. We need to acknowledge that, and that's a good thing. But the trend is still upward. So the issue of the factors that that I've mentioned in terms of what the causes coalescing around certain things needs to, I think, further be unpacked, and we need to really discuss that in depth using evidence-based discussions, rational discussions, to understand what is it that continue to drive this, despite the fact that we have responded with investment into housing and other services. So I think it has improved, it is better, and a lot is being done. And I remember the first when we did the first count in 2004, I took a lot of flack. I was accused of not being able to count because it was just not true. And I think there's bigger recognition now that these findings are useful and is helpful. So yeah, I think we have made progress. I feel better about it. And I know, I mean, I'm a realist too. There's public resources or resources are always finite, and you have to make priority choices. And but we know the stress is on healthcare. We know the stress on housing in general for working families too. So that is a bigger policy discussion.
Director McAhonig.
I just want to say I remember being on the 2004 count when I was with Agassiz, and I just want to personally thank you and commend you for your big heart for the work and keeping it going for all the communities, and that I know you really make a difference. I mean, we've had just about 12,000 persons come through our outreach. We did foot care this morning and we ran out of supplies, like, you know, so there's just such a big need, and we really need you out there. So thank you very much.
Director Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the presentation. Good stuff. I was looking for the document and I can't find it. I apologize. I believe it was a Los Angeles research piece, but I believe I know it's echoed by the frontline workers that I've talked to in Chilliwack, and it's about the seniors number and the rising seniors number. And I think it was the Los Angeles document that said the seniors numbers, when it comes to people experiencing homelessness, are consistently rising with the senior demographic in society in general. And what I heard locally is that many of the seniors that are frontline workers, whether it's police or bylaw, that are talking to them daily, the story that they're told is that they're people that have lost family connections, one, but that also they weren't prepared for the retired life or senior life. And now they're in a position where they have a choice to make, whether it's trying to find a place to live or pay for their prescription medicine that they desperately need, that's not funded. And they make a decision to live on the street and fund the medication that they require. Is that kind of consistent story with this document I can't find, which I again believe was a Los Angeles document?
What I can say is consistent is the rise in terms of our data too, of the proportion of the older folk, senior folk that actually on this. Again, the survey as a tool doesn't lend itself to understand, okay, why, we didn't delve deep into talking to this individual, so what is forced to be here. That needs to follow in terms of further follow-up work that needs to be done at the community level. So case workers can sit down with seniors and understand what has contributed to this. But I think what you describe is in line with what we hear in terms of general commentary and anecdotal evidence in our society as to the challenges. As to the challenges that seniors are facing.
So intuitively, it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, I would agree. Yeah.
Director Dreesen.
Thank you, Chair Lum. I did have a question. One of the things I noticed was the trends for healthcare from 2020 to 2023, the significant increase in physical disability, mental conditions, and brain injuries that respondents had mentioned, but it wasn't necessarily mentioned under the causes for homelessness, or it was grouped together as under, I guess, just other health issues. So I was just wondering, realizing this is high level, if there's more that you can speak to, whether those are in fact more something that's that should be included in there or not.
Yeah, no, it is in terms of the summary there of what are the causes coalescing around the other health issues would speak to that for sure. And again, we will, the fuller report will speak more in depth and detail about that, because there's a constellation of issues at play in many instances that cause people to in the end experience homelessness. The best way is there's a constellation of factors at play, and sometimes it builds up, and then there's one trigger that just make it to end up experience homelessness, and then the spiraling down continues, unfortunately.
Director Siemens.
Thank you. You had mentioned that you're going to have some recommendations, and I'm just wondering if you could, part of your recommendations, I'm always encouraged by how many people want to do something, but I'm always discouraged when the rubber hits the road. Nobody wants it in their neighborhood. Are you going to be able to help us address and navigate some of those stormy waters? Any suggestions would be helpful, because when push comes to shove, people do get shoved out, and then we're still stuck holding the bag, trying to figure out what to do. And we continue to go down that same path time and time again. So just wondered if there was any suggestions that might come forward in your recommendations.
I will I would have that conversation with the FVRD staff that has given me my briefing, my mandate, and see what we can respond to. That's the best I can do. But I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and if we can be helpful in that respect, we would certainly try and do that.
Thank you, Dr. Van Wyck. I just maybe I'll ask one more question, or something that I noticed in the numbers was the I guess the considerable per capita number of people experiencing homelessness in Chilliwack in comparison to Abbotsford, who much larger population, but it seems like Chilliwack's numbers are quite high as well. And do you see any correlation between that number and the number of new emergency shelter beds and new housing projects like that have been brought on, new units brought on in Chilliwack?
I haven't done that bivariate analysis, so we can look into it and see whether there's any correlation.
Yeah,
correlation doesn't mean causation.
Causation, that's true. Yeah, I'm just curious. I also noticed that it was a significant amount of people that you participated in the count were in shelter. So I'm wondering, yeah, if you see any trend like that in your further analysis. I'm interested in that.
We'll be looking for that. See what we can report.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much for your work on this. Appreciate it. And of course, we thank all the community partners who took part in this important work as well. Look forward to the final report. Ms. Kinnaman, next item.
6.1 is the draft Fraser Valley Regional District Board meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2023.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Pranger, seconded by Director Siemens. All in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Items 7.1 through 7.3 are committee minutes for information and matters arising.
Questions on any of the information items? Seeing none. Next item.
8.1 is a 2023 grant request from the Forager Foundation for Electoral Area B.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Popov. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
8.2 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Yale and District Historical Society in the Electoral Area B.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Smith. All in favor of the staff recommendation, opposed, motion carries. Next item.
8.3 is the FVRD Financial Plan 2023 to 2027 amendment for July. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Clute, seconded by Director Lowen. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
8.4 is the FVRD 2024 to 2028 financial plan approach.
Thank you.
Jim.
Moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Davidson.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Just one comment on it. I know there's a couple of service areas, North Fraser Fire comes to mind, where we have 3 electoral area directors representing 1 service area. And what struck me as a little bit anomalous is that those meetings with the electoral area directors are separate. It would make better sense to have one meeting, in my mind, with all 3 electoral area directors. I don't know if there are other service areas out there that fall in the same pattern, but it's just something that I'm hoping that the plan is flexible enough to accommodate that. I guess the other one that comes to mind would be when we as East meet and talk about building service area, but we don't do it with any representative from Harrison time. So it just struck me at the time as a bit of a outlier that hopefully we can address going forward. Thank you.
I see nodding heads that the flexibility is built into this. But...
Sure. Through the chair to Director Davidson, I believe in the past what staff have typically done is try to assess from the meetings with the individual areas if there's alignment, and wherever there might not be alignment, they would go forward and have that exact kind of meeting that you were describing. But if it is those service area representatives' wishes for us to try to merge some of these meetings together, we're more than happy to take that direction.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions? Director Siemens?
Thank you. We cruised through this process pretty quickly, and I just wanted staff to understand that we don't ask a lot of questions because it's done very well. So these are foundational, and I just didn't want staff to be left with the impression that we were just sort of flying through and not paying attention. You know, at the city, we also go through some of our finances pretty quickly because they're done so well. So just kudos to staff.
In case our finance staff didn't see, I saw a thumbs up from directors around the table. So in case you missed that, we saw that, and this is in direct response to some of the commentary that we've collected over time, that staff have collected over time, and this is a response to that. So definitely appreciate that, and appreciate that Director Siemens for underscoring that this is a good thing, a positive thing. Okay. Ready for the question. All in favor, opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
9.1 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1691 to correct mapping, improve definitions, improve regulations, and address minor housekeeping matters.
This is for EAs. That's moved by Director Dickey, seconded by Director Adamo. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
9.2 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1692 to implement accessory dwelling units and secondary suites.
Thank you. Again, EAs, mover in a second. It's moved by Director Castle, seconded by Director Dixon. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
9.3 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Electoral Area Animal Control Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1713.
Thank you. Motion number 1. This is for all. This is moved by Director Shahal, seconded by Director Ross. Discussion. None, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Motion number 2. Again, for all, is moved by Director Popov, seconded by Director Makahonic. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
9.4 is Fraser Valley Regional District Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw 1706.
Thank you. That is moved by Director Horn, seconded by Director Dixon. Discussion. Director Clute, go ahead.
Thank you. Very interesting read, 60 pages of our regional growth strategy. And I'm pretty overwhelmed when you look at in the next 25 years, they expect a 38% increase in our population within the Lower Mainland and our area. But one of the things I noticed on page 46 of 60 of the report is our high and critical priorities. And we all know our highway system needs substantial improvements, but I'm also curious why on 14 of high priorities, the Rosedale Bridge, seismic and safety retrofits. But I'm almost wondering at this stage of the game, with that bridge being the age it is, maybe it should also should be added onto it, or replacement, because at some point in the future, it's probably going to be too cost prohibitive to do retrofits on that bridge. But it's just a thought. So
I see lots of nodding heads. I think
we can certainly accept that feedback for sure.
I think the board is very open to that. Yeah. I'm looking at Director Pranger. She is nodding her head. Yes. Director Horn, go ahead.
Really, I just wanted to say something similar to what Director Siemens said regarding the financial approach, and add, not only was this extremely well done as a document, and I really appreciate the communications approach within it, but also the engagement that staff undertook. So thank you for a job well done.
Thank you very much, Director Horn. Director Mercer.
Thank you. And thank you again, and echo Council Director Klute's comments. When I read the report, I guess my DNA just immediately went to public safety. And while we're predicting, the considerable growth across the entire district, the cities kind of take care of themselves when it comes to public safety, because they're what's referred to as either a city police force or a municipal contract in the cities, where you pay for the policing you want. And where I'm concerned in this report with the growth is what the strategy is with the province. And I'll use just Chilliwack very quickly as an example again. In Director Mahonic's area, out in the Cultus Lake area, Chilliwack has a total of 8 people, 8 police officers for all the provincial areas in the Chilliwack region, which includes the Chilliwack Valley, Cultus Lake, the backcountry, Tamahai, it's eight people. And those 8 people do not fill a 24-hour policing space, which means the city of Mission is probably very much subsidizing through their municipal contract policing in the rural areas. I know Chilliwack is in the regional model supporting Kent Harrison and Agassiz, because there's not a chance with their numbers that they can complete their policing responsibilities in this growing population. And probably the worst that I'm aware of is the Chilliwack River Valley, where your population is growing up, and it's actually the citizens of Chilliwack that are actually doing the funding for policing. And I don't want to open up a can of whoop butt here, but I'll just mention it, is that when I look at my taxes for a 3,500, 4,000 square foot nice home, I'm about 4,000, and I can simply do the math, and I'm paying about $1,300 a year for policing. And I have a very good friend who used to be the chief of police, Brian Massey, in Popgum, and the policing cost is itemized on the tax receipt, and his cost for policing is $142 a year. So I don't know where the solution is, but as I see the population growth increasing, we have to, as a regional district, figure out something with the provincial government to come up to some kind of police to population ratio or provincial resources to do police's job in a growing population environment, because right now it ain't working.
Director Mercer, Director Adamo.
Thanks. Yes, this presentation was really well done, but I have to question a couple of things when it came to estimated population growth. And you claim that in the EAs that you're looking at from 2021, 12,136, and by 2030, we'd only have an increase of 300, when the Sunshine Valley itself will have an increase of 500 people in the next 2 to 3 years of full-time residents. So I'm just wondering if anybody came out to do any of that specific study in that specific area, because that's the only area of all of my area B that has a very significant growth pattern. And it will increase more in the next 12 years with, up to 1,000 places being built on the leased land side. So I'm just curious where that number came from.
I think, and I know I'm going to get corrected here, that we're using provincial population projections to fill some of our numbers. I don't think it's a regional district staff just taking a stab at what they think the numbers are going to be. But Ms. Kinnaman, I could be wrong.
Well, Chair Long, you know the regional growth strategy pretty well, but how about we turn things over to Allison Stewart, who lives and breathes this stuff.
Yes, through the chair, the population projections, especially in the rural areas, is a real interesting challenge, just because you have small numbers and you can have one development of 300 units happen 1 year and you have a huge increase, and then it takes a number of years. So these numbers are averages. Same with the municipalities. You're not necessarily going to have a smooth increase over a 30 or 40 year period. We're trying to sort of smooth it out over that time period. So it's a challenge for when you're talking a population of 400 and that increase.
Thanks. I understand the challenge completely. I'm more concerned with getting tax dollars from everybody in a timely fashion and not waiting for the next report to come out. So I need to be able to identify that these full-time residents are there now, and that are we getting the proper funds to support our garbage disposal, for example? Are we getting enough funding for that through the new immediate growth that occurred so quickly? Things like that.
Ms. Hanneman, I think we would be, our service areas, or if they were participating in the service area, they would be paying for it. Regional
Correct.
districts
I
are
guess I
pretty
was just
good
going
at
to
that.
ask some clarifying questions of the director. So in terms of how we fund services, it's based on actual numbers, not on census numbers. But if you're referring to how sometimes we receive grant funds from the province that might be based on rural growth, those two are based on census figures that are provided by the province, and those are given to us in the year or the I'm just looking to our corporate officer. She believes the next one is 2026 that we would get updated numbers from the province. So certainly if 500 properties were added to the Sunshine Valley this year, you may, and we were to get a grant from the province that was based on growth, you might not see that reflected until, say, the 2026 year.
Thank you. This is a bit of a specific thing, so I think we can take this off out of this group and perhaps follow up on it individually next week, if that would be okay. Thanks.
Great. Director Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious when I'm looking at some of the charts in here, and I echo it's a great document. Thank you. The EAs are all grouped together. Do you have the ability to separate those numbers? Like if I was curious in my area, you know, what are the dwelling types? Because it doesn't separate area H. Is that possible if we were wanting that information?
We'll ask Ms. Stewart to answer that, but perhaps Director Dixon, could you direct staff to the exact page that you're referring to on your document? That would be helpful. Thank you. Page 12, Allison.
Most of this stuff looks like demographic census data that we're using for the RGS. So it would be based on the how the census breaks down, right?
Yeah, through the chair, these are long-term projections in terms of the absolute breakdowns of units in terms of existing. We do have that data and we can provide that to you if you're interested. And it gets quite detailed for each of the electoral areas and even for some of the sort of designated communities, so smaller specific areas, there's census data that provides that kind of information. So you get a pretty accurate assessment of the unit types.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? I don't see any. We've got a motion on the floor, I believe. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
9.5 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Baker Trails Sewer System Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaw number 1708.
Thank you. Motion is moved by Director McElhonick, seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Motion number 2, moved by Director Lowen, seconded by Director Mercer. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item. Oh, motion number 3, sorry. It's moved by Director Ross, seconded by Director Sadhu. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries.
9.6 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Popcom Sewer System Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaw number 1709.
It's going to be one of these. Okay, Director Dickey, seconded by Director McElhonick. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Motion number 2, it's moved by Director Smith, seconded by Director Dixon. All in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Motion number 3, it's moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Horn. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
9.7 is the Fraser Valley Regional District South Cultus Lake Sewage Treatment Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaw number 1710.
Thank you. Motion number 1 is moved by Director Dixon, second by Director Clute. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Motion number 2 is moved by Director Mercer, seconded by Director Dickey. All in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Motion number 3, moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Siemens. All in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
9.8 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Hope Airport Vehicle Purchase Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaw number 1711.
Now we know why the agenda took 2 binders. Yeah. Moved by Director Pranger, second by Director Davies. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Motion number 2, moved by Director Popo, seconded by Director Smith. All in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Motion number 3 is moved by Director Clute, seconded by Director Treason. All in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
And 9.9 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Emergency Management Program Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaw number 1712.
Thank you. Motion number 1 is moved by Director Horn, seconded by Director Adamo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Motion number 2, moved by Director Makahonic, seconded by Director Popo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Motion number 3, moved by Director Ross, seconded by Director Dickey. All in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
10.1 is Special Event Permit 20th Annual Around the Lake Trail Race in Electoral Area H.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Sadoo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
11.1 is sole source purchasing of services to assist with leadership of the Hatzic Watershed Stewardship Team and development of a watershed resilience plan.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Horn, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion.
Davidson?
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Just want to confirm on a sole source purchasing and this particular one, it's early days for the watershed stewardship team and where it's going to go in the future kind of remains to be seen. Just want to confirm that there's exit language in this sole source purchase agreement should it be necessary to terminate and move in a different direction. Thank you.
Ms. Kinnaman.
Through the chair to Director Davidson, of course, all of our contracts have provisions that enable the conclusion of a contract. I'm confident that for this particular scope of work and the timelines that are associated, that we will be able to move very quickly to achieve the outcomes that have been discussed at the stewardship team table. But that's being said, I think that those that have been involved in this work understand that it is likely we're going to need additional funds in the future to carry out additional projects down the line. And hopefully we will be successful in securing those funds from other levels of government.
Great, thank you.
Director Horn.
First, a thank you to staff, just because I know it has been a lot of work to get to this point. So exceptional work, and to our partners at Lacamo First Nation as well. A question through the chair to staff, and that is the work that's going to be done here potentially applicable to some of the work that's being done in the Coquihalla area or that Abbotsford might utilize in Sumas, or vice versa? Might we learn from some what's going on there?
Ms. Kinnaman.
Through the chair to Director Horn, well, as luck would have it, I sit on the lower Coquihalla recovery table, as does Director Adamo, and they are at a much different stage of work than the Hatzic Watershed Stewardship Team. So I am hopeful, and you actually would be interested to know that quite a number of ministry staff also are sitting on both tables. So I think there's a great opportunity for information sharing, and you know that I'm no big fan of reinventing wheels. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to for information sharing between not just those two tables, but perhaps other tables in the Fraser Valley.
Thank you. I just, to wrap up on this, Mr. Chair, would say that while this is extraordinarily delicate work, because it has to have all of the stakeholders involved, and not just for a little while, but for a long while, and making sure that they're on board with some significant capital investments over an enduring period. I also am really encouraged by the way this table is functioning, and I'm hearing from others elsewhere in the province that they're paying attention to what we're doing at this table, and just really proud of the work we're all doing. And thanks to staff for being such advocates in terms of getting these dollars and working in partnership to find a way to use them.
Thank you, Director Horn. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
11.2 is guaranteed maximum pricing for Hope and Area Recreation Center upgrades.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Smith, seconded by Director Adamo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
11.3 is the FVRD Fraser Cascade School District 78 Joint Use Agreement.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
11.4 is the North Cultus wastewater treatment plant headworks and filter supply contract updates. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. That is moved by Director Dixon and seconded by Director Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
11.5 is the Nakaman Island pump station improvements.
Thank you. That's moved by
So moved.
Director Castle, seconded by Director Clute. Discussion, Director Castle.
Yeah, just real quickly, I'd just like to say that I'm very happy to see that a project that was originally identified as a need in 2015 and partially funded in 2017 is finally coming to fruition. I'd like to thank staff and the members of the steering committee for their willingness to move forward with improvements to drainage on Nakaman Island, which is home to some very important productive agricultural lands. I'm encouraged that we are able to enhance our resiliency and our ability to mitigate flooding with improvements like submersible pumps and bringing the electrical kiosks and pump controls up above the flood elevation. And I appreciate the support of the board to move this project forward. Thank you.
Very good. It's significant work. And on behalf of Area G, thank you, Director Castle, for that. Appreciate your hard work on this. I don't see any other discussion. Call the question. All in favor, opposed if any. The item carries unanimously. Next item.
11.6 is the Boston Bar Station House Architectural Design Contract Award.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Donald, seconded by Director Johnson. There she is. Sorry about that. Let's switch that around. That's moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Donald. Discussion. Sorry, Director Johnson, did you have anything you wanted to say on that item?
Just that I'm very happy to see it finally moving forward.
Very good. Any other?
COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, that item carries. Thank you. Next item.
12.1 is the FVRD quarterly update. It's an information item.
Thank you. Questions? Don't see any. Next item.
12.2 is the RCMP Highway Patrol Advocacy Update. We do have a verbal report from the Chair and Mayor's Committee.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just recognize the chair of that committee, Director Horn. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm going to throw to Director Popov in a moment because I know he's got some more recent information. July 5th, there was a meeting of the, I don't know what to call it, actually, a session convened by the RCMP by Chief Superintendent Holly Turton of the Highway Patrol to address some of the questions that came out of the regional districts letters, as well as letters from municipalities regarding the Highway Patrol issues. My understanding in hearing reports back from directors around this table, as well as the acting mayor of Mission, while I was away, is that it was essentially more of what we've had in the past, more of a telling of what was going to happen, as opposed to any kind of dialogue and no real addressing of some of the gaps we've had in terms of the notice period. After speaking with a number of mayors, and Mayor Smith, I did leave a message for you. I didn't hear back from you, but I did reach out to other mayors around our table and speak with them. We had initially started talking about whether or not we really needed to reach out to some of the metro mayors and have them become more aware of what's happening. But I note that I was in receipt, and I'm sure others were yesterday, of a letter from Mayor Langley Mayor Pashal saying he had very similar concerns. So it does seem to be on the radar of metro mayors as well. I'll ask you to come back to me if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, after perhaps we get an update from Director Popov, who I think, as in his capacity as mayor, you and him and others had an opportunity to speak with the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, and I think have further information that might shape how we move next. Director Popov, I did let you know that I thought I was going to throw to you this way, and I hope you're comfortable with that.
It's all good, not a problem. I had the opportunity with Chair Lum and Director Mercer about 10 days ago. The minister was in Chilliwack for a different announcement, and we had the opportunity to have a sit down with them. And I'll give my opinion of that conversation, and the who other fellows can jump in. He heard us, and on lack of consultation was his big issue, and he was going to take it back to staff to take another look at it. And in my opinion, that September 1st date, if I'm a gambling person, is off the table now. But I'll let Director Mercer or Chair Lum to maybe chime in as well.
Yeah, thank you. And first, back to the meeting or session that Director Horn talked about. You know, that describes it lightly. That's all it was, just a rehash of what we should have known. When they were backed, when I say they, the Solicitor General's office and the RCMP were backed into the corner, they threw their local commanders under the bus and said, well, they were supposed to consult with you. Sorry if they didn't. And then added that the problem was the election cycle, and the election cycle got in the way with all the new elected people that might not have passed the information along. Director Pranger reminded them that she'd been around longer in that position than she had been in the police force, and that there hadn't been any turnover, and that it was factually wrong. So it was a circular discussion. I think the more productive discussion, as was mentioned by Mayor Popoff, was with the Solicitor General. He listened intently. We had him as a private office in our private meeting in our coffee room. It was very casual, very candid, very candid. He wasn't happy with the level of consultation. And I think one of the things for you, Paul, or Director Horn, is those suggestions that you made to us as asks to delay it, to engage. He heard them loud and clear, and we were sure to pass along what your thoughts were from probably just about 3 weeks to a month ago. And, you know, we explained, you know, in uncertain terms that what the Highway Patrol doing is by doing proactive engagement on the highway and focusing on the cause factors of fatal accidents is not a bad thing. All modern police forces do it, but you don't throw away everything you did for 40 years away and give it to somebody else just so you can be proactive. And he nodded at that several times and agreed that, you know, he seemed to agree, non-committal, seemed to agree that a better model was to staff up Highway Patrol. So they did have a element of the unit doing proactive stuff, but the other part of the unit doing what Highway Patrols have done for 50, 60, 70 years. So I thought that part was positive. And there was one more thing he mentioned.
Their Director of Police Services, he was gonna go back to his Director of Police Services to look at it. I think.
Sorry?
The commitment that he made was that he would refer the item back to his Director of Police Services.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. The person from the Sol Gen's office that he brought to the session started off her presentation with acknowledgement that she pretty much was new to Canada and never been in Hope. And anyway, you can't make that up, right? But anyway, it was a good meeting, and I think we're in the right space, and I guess we'll see.
Back to you, Director Horn.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all those comments. And what I would ask of the board this evening is that they support a motion that says that if we do not hear back with positive news by August 15th, that they empower, and I'll put myself out as the chair of the Mayor and Chairs Committee, but I'm equally happy to let it be others, empower us to reach out to Metro, to the Metro Mayor's table, as well as to the minister directly to see if we can advance those 3 points. Those 3 points, again, for memory, were that the date be delayed, that there be a conversation about achieving clear division of duties, or when we would have the ability to call on BC Highway Patrol, and that there be a provision for review of the changes after a period of time. So I'll move, Mr. Chair, that if it suits the board, that through our mayor's table, we reach out to the Metro table and to the Minister of PSSG if we haven't had news by August 15th.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? And it's seconded. On the motion, Director Mercer, go ahead.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add one more thing to that, and I think it's relevant to the motion. One of the things that did get the minister's attention that was brought up by Abbotsford and confirmed by Chilliwack is that in all of our places, when a call comes into dispatch, it goes into a prioritization queue. If it's a level 1 call, like a domestic violence or an assault or robbery, it's immediate. If it's a 2, it's less than, but it's important. If it's a 3, it might wait till the end of the shift before anybody gets to it, or to the next shift coming on. And we reminded him that accidents on the highway where there's no injuries, the cars are blocking traffic and the cars are off to the side of the road, yes or no, that kind of call is not a priority. Even if it's backed up to Vancouver, there's no public safety at risk. It's not a public safety call. It's not a court policing call. And it might wait, and traffic blocks up is a commerce and infrastructure problem. And that's what highway patrols do. That's not what court policing in our communities do. And it'll never be treated as a priority. And I think that got his attention.
And I think the Police Act section that you read out also got his attention, reaffirmed that. Director Siemens.
Abbotsford's going to feel this before the other jurisdictions, but when the freeway gets widened, we are on the hook for a chunk of the intersections that fall on municipal land. We're not allowed to collect development cost charges. So it's just ironic, and we're using this in our advocacy work too, that we are required to fund infrastructure that we don't own. But we're not allowed to collect development cost charges. So we're using this as well because there's longer term financial implications other than just the police of jurisdiction issue. So we're weaving that into our discussions as well to ensure that we've got their attention on all fronts. But it's just the hypocrisy of them saying we're the police of jurisdiction, and yet it's not lost on us. So we've had that conversation as well, and I raise that with the ministers when we can. So that's something that I think we need to weave into our conversation with them.
Director Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the help from Abbotsford there. We had some numbers on that, how it works. So when we were at the meeting at the RCMP, it was so interesting. She brought up the fact that Abbotsford has 3 accidents in their area, of the highway, and they have 223 members. Hope has 1 accident only. We have 7 times the territory, but we have 18 members. But she was okay with that math, which seems kind of odd. We have 2 regional districts, in our area to support us, that we need to support and everything else. And it's when we had conversation, she already had they had their mind set. We were just down there just talking. That they weren't listening and everything else. It's a money saving thing. So in the 90s, we had 32 members in Hope. We got reduced to 18. She says, we're not going anywhere. They added Highway 5. Don't worry about that. We don't need any more for that. So we're down to 18 now. And they said, and we won't steal from anybody. We're going to get it from other areas. We have now a member of Hope transferring to Highway Patrol because it's 8 days only, not nights. Okay, we're going to be down thing like this. So their life ring is Chilliwack. If we're short, they're going to send money for Chilliwack. Like, that's wrong. And I do appreciate Director Mercer, what he brought to the table, because he got a lot of experience there. And he actually, put bluntly to her what was going on here and that. But they already had their mind made up. But I do thank the support and rest of the mayors and that. I hope we can do something on this. So thank you.
Okay, so on the motion that's being put forward, I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Thank you, directors. Next item.
12.3 is context for recognizing the rights of Indigenous peoples. Again, an information item, but happy to discuss.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, next item.
12.4 is electoral area C official community plan update, project progress, and geohazard report authorization.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Wardenberg, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
12.5 is the FVRD electoral area sanitary sewer gap analysis update.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dickey, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
12.6 is letter of support regarding disaster mitigation adaptation funding for the city of Abbotsford for Sumas River watershed flood mitigation.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Clute, seconded by, oh, it even got background music to it, Director Gibson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries.
Moving down to the consent agenda, we have 13.1.1 down through 13.1.5. Happy to separate any of those items.
Thank you. Let's get a mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director, who's right here? There, Director Castle, second by Director Dickey. All in favor, opposed if any, those items carry. Next item.
Moving down to item 15, which are items for information and correspondence.
Thank you. Questions on information items? Director Gibson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed under Appendix 1, and I don't mean to micromanage here, but I did have a look at this. The last entry says, these must be financial institutions located in either Canada or the USA. I was surprised with the USA, and I'm wondering if we do invest in American financial institutions. It's my sense.
What are you, just sorry, I'll get you to.
Pardon me, Chair, we're under Appendix 1, investment parameters under the Treasury update.
Okay, Treasury update.
Yep. Thank you for allowing me to query this rather small item, but it troubled me in any event. I don't believe we do invest in USA banks, and it's my sense as a proud Canadian that our Canadian banks are generally more secure and stable than their US cousins. And my question is, do we really invest in US banks?
That sounds like a Miss Lonsborough question. She's moving towards the microphones. Miss Lonsborough.
I am. Thank you through the chair. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. But no, we don't invest in US banks. So that's something we could probably update in the next revision. We did the revision to the investment policy a year or so ago, and it was the first time in 9 years. So we'll take that advice. Thank you.
Reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you. And next item. We're still looking for Appendix 1.
I need to get back 1,100 pages. Just a moment, Chair Lum. Thank you. So then we would be moving down to item 17, which is reports by board directors.
Thank you. Directors, it'd be your opportunity. Director Makahonic, go ahead.
I just want to do a quick one. So when we were at the LGMA, it came to my attention that Fortis provides grants that elected officials can apply for nonprofits and charities. So I asked if I would be eligible. I wore two hats, one for a nonprofit and one for here. And they said it wasn't a conflict. So I went ahead and they award 3 in the province every year. And it's a fairly straightforward grant application. So I was able to get $15,000. And so I like anybody that doesn't have plans for August 30th. Fortis will be in town. You will get an invitation. And it is going to be a outdoor movie, family friendly. The movie is Super Mario Brothers. It's going to be outdoors, Watson Glen Park. And you should all be getting an invitation. And it's to raise awareness around domestic violence and homelessness. So well, welcome to that. Was really happy to do an award ceremony to a group of volunteers and the Chilliwack River Veteran Cleanup Society and the Residents Association, and they were absolutely thrilled. The amount of garbage and camps that we're facing with, people are getting really disheartened, and I think it's really important to recognize. So I was happy to be a part of that. And thank you very much to the staff for making the boardroom available. I think they felt really important. Something, I don't know about a report, but something that's been come up and over and over again lately, and I'd like to see if somebody would like to work with me on this. And our RAP line needs an overhaul. And there's no file number when you call in, there's no transparency, and there's a lack of follow-up.
And people are to the point they no longer report, and it's really problematic. I used to actually help administer that when I was with the BC Wildlife Federation. So I don't know what's going on with it, but everybody's short-staffed, I get it, but this is really a problem, and it's not just it's a regional problem, a provincial problem. So, and with drought and fires in the valley, homelessness, people are working together, but it's unmanageable, and we really need to have that wrap line, and we really have to have a way that we can track file numbers and we have some kind of transparency. So I'd like to lobby to the province, and I can do it on my own, but I'd really like to do it with a group. I think it might be more effective. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out to me outside of this, I guess, and or staff. And that's my report. So hope to see you on the 30th.
Thank you, Director McElhonick. Director Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, last week, my house is situated on a cliff. I look straight down on Chilliwack Lake Road and off into the US, looking straight south, with Cultus Lake kind of being over there to the right and down. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, very loud explosion. We were sitting on the deck and thought it was an incoming mortar. It was that loud. Didn't know what it was, kind of looked at each other and kept drinking wine. But within 2 minutes, massive plumes of smoke came up, huge fire down the cliff below us towards Chilliwack Lake Road. I don't know if we're the only ones that called 911, but when we did, I timed the response in Chilliwack. It was 8 minutes. And within minutes of that, the regional district's fire department was on scene. There was over 40 firefighters battling the flame from the bottom. When it started to spread, they came up into the small cul-de-sac that's directly under us, and they used ladder trucks with the ladders over the roofs and spraying the hoses down. That contained it minimally and spread into the brush. They started heading east into the forest with the westerly winds. And within 15 minutes, and Councillor Clute was monitoring the incoming aircraft on an app on his phone, which I'm yet to understand. But they were dumping water on it, as well as firefighting, and it was out within an hour and a half. Couldn't be more impressed with the collaboration between our two fire departments and BC Wildfires, how quick they are. They actually landed in the cul-de-sac with the helicopter after they had a look, tied the buckets on, and were gone again. And we watched them with the rest of the province picking up water in the river below us and dumping it on the fire. Pretty impressive. And then lastly, just a couple nights ago, we were on Harrison Lake having dinner, and all of a sudden a fire popped up on the west side again across from Echo Island. And I remembered that star 5555, which is BC Wildfire. Called them, it gave them the quadrants as I had it on my GPS. And within 10 minutes, there was a helicopter overhead from Abbotsford. So pretty impressive. And I think we're in a bad environment right now, but I would suggest we're in really good hands. But thank you to the district and to the city.
Thank you, Director Mercer. I see Director Horn. Go ahead.
Well, there's a theme running here. Mission to about 8 o'clock on Saturday night learned that a fire had broken out right next to Canal Lake, which is a source of water in our shared system with Abbotsford. So while the fire itself wasn't terribly large, we were concerned about its impact on our water supply, which, as we know, is under threat across the province right now. As Director Mercer said, in the instance in his area, we're very grateful to our fire department as well as to BC Wildfire Service. But I also wanted to highlight a growing concern that we have in Mission, and I think I'm hearing it from some of our neighboring communities, and that is the difficulty in monitoring and I guess controlling access into the backcountry, and it's becoming an emerging issue, and one I'm hoping that we can perhaps consider maybe at the mayor's table someplace else and have a bit of a debriefing after this season in terms of coming forward with a position that we may want to bring to the province, either through UBCM or in some other way. but we're really struggling in our area to monitor all of the activity. This latest fire was a human-caused fire. At least that's what the early indications are, and it's only a matter of time before we are going to see something that impacts a significant number of homes, water, or other infrastructure. So just a thought process for me of something I'm hoping we'll discuss again at a later date.
Thank you. I think that's a live discussion happening at the East table as well, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of the East directors are very alive to the challenge of controlling access to the backcountry and where might the province set those different parameters in relation to the fire hazard risk assessment.
That's correct, Chair Lum. If I may, there is actually a board motion that staff have acted upon to request meetings at UBCM with respect to these topics. So I'm sure that the Chair of East would be happy to provide an update following those meetings, assuming that we're successful in securing one.
Thank you. Director Smith, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So Nestle Waters was taken over a while ago by Blue Trident. Blue Trident. Jennifer Kerr, who is still one of the people left there, has left word for Jason, Mr. Lum there to, if we need any water in your area, they would supply it to you free, to have that because some of the areas for emergency thing. So just in case you know, if you can hold it, he has a direct line with her. And also August 17th to 20th, this is every second year we do a world-class chainsaw event in Hope. And this is the biggest we've done. It's the biggest in Western Canada this year. So we have people as far away as New Zealand, Nova Scotia, Arkansas, California. So it's a free event. And also we have birdhouses for free for kids to paint on Saturday. And we also have free library books for kids. We also have teaching about the outback with the outdoor group with different things you can do to make yourself healthy and live in our community, hopefully. And also the Bear Aware will tell you about, being new people moving to the area to be proper in that. So anyway, it's a good event, free, bring your family out, enjoy. Friday and Saturday night, we both have a band with free music, free also enjoy. So an invitation. Hope to see you. Ciao.
Thank you, Director Smith. Director Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I wanted to say appreciated Andrew Schellenberg being in North Bend Saturday, July 8th for the Elmer Carlson pool kickoff. He set up his Fire Smart display, and a few folks did show an interest in signing up for Fire Smart home assessment. And of course, the kids loved all the Fire Smart swag that Andrew had. So I think they pretty much cleaned his table. And I had the honor of attending a drumming and blanket ceremony at Chihuahua on July 20th, and this was done for the wildfire fighters. There were approximately 40 that were in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Director Adamo.
Thanks. Had an opportunity. Ms. Kinnerman said that we attended our first meeting today for the sub-regional watershed resiliency group out of Hope. And we had a lot of ministerial support there and participation. So that's something that we'll all look forward to in the next upcoming weeks and months, as this is more than a year or two project to build this program. We also had a meeting in the Sunshine Valley with the CLCCF group to identify and introduce us to their logging plans for this year, something that the regional district is a recipient of with our three-way partnership between Yale First Nation, the District of Hope, and the Regional District Area B. It was a very successful meeting, very positive, and the community got a lot out of it. And I too would like to invite you to the largest event that the Sunshine Valley holds on a yearly basis. It's our second annual car show and entertainment session. We'll have 3 bands from 10 to 12 midnight on August the 12th. All is welcome. Everyone is welcome. Families of all ages. Neil Diamond is in the house, as well as Brian Adams is coming out of the UK for this show, or perhaps someone very much like him. But it will be a great show. 200 vehicles are already guaranteed to be there. So it's quite a large car show and a big event for our community. So we'd really appreciate anybody that would like to come out. I will make sure you have a beverage. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, you had me at beverage. Okay. Don't see any other reports. I'll just add a very quick one. Happy to hear from relevant ministers that after a a grueling number of months, the transit strike has come to an end and a return to service date has now been chosen. BC Transit's working with our contractors right now. I believe that return to service date will be early August. And BC Transit will be working with their partners around promotion of a back to transit type event, which may or may not include waiving fares or significantly reducing fares based on the considerable cost savings that BC Transit had during this time during the strike. So we thank Mr. Reddy and his team and the magic that they were able to pull off to achieve a mediated settlement between the two parties. But the big people are the big thank you that I want to personally extend is to those in the community who relied on transit and who had to be put out for a considerable amount of time. We know how serious the impact was on you, and we hope that this doesn't happen again. And we hope that you will come back to the transit system when that return to service date is announced. But we thank you very much for your patience, and thank the parties for working together and coming to a settlement agreement that gets us buses back on the road. That's all for me. Next item.
Moving down to public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We have no members of the public with us in the boardroom, but I'll just turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness, for those that may be joining us via Zoom.
Van Ness.
Thank you. We do not have anybody joining us by Zoom, so we're free to move to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item. We are going to motion to close.
Looking for a resolution to close the meeting, Chair Lum.
Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Director Facio, second by Director Mercer. All in favor, opposed if any. That item carries, and we'll reconvene our closed portion of the meeting in
5 minutes would be great, Chair Lum.